So I love the roundtable discussions. It really feels like the time when the community comes together about their particular challenges that they're struggling with, shares resources, and brainstorms. So here are the list of topics. If you're still finding a seat, they're alphabetically organized, but snaking through the room, that is my fault. And there are some unlabeled giant Post-its in the back. If you don't find the topic you are most interested in, you are welcome to form one. I believe a table has formed around college algebra and other courses of that at that tier that we had not previously had represented in this. So there are new topics. So the goals for the roundtable are for you to gather with people who have similar challenges, to share those resources, and to problem solve about that. So what I'd like you to do is begin by introducing yourselves, and as you're going, well, you should identify what those challenges are. What's the hard thing you're working on, or what are the things that you have some wisdom to share about. At the end of that discussion, please assign yourselves roles. One of the most important ones is the harmonizer for this year, who makes sure that the voices are balanced, that if somebody hasn't been talking, that we make sure their needs are being met, and if someone is dominating, that maybe they be suggested to cede the microphone. So please take the next hour. I will walk around and make sure that the groups are having productive discussions.
How many students typically are in this?
Well, it's Michigan, so there are 200 spread out between about 6 to 8 sections.
That would explain why you don't have time for students.
Yeah, and we were teaching alongside traditional lectures this year. So with the same homework, with the same exams, with the same tests, yet I'm actually going to be describing this right after lunch.
So there's like a 200 lecture section, and
there
then
is no
there's
lecture.
Like
No.
Okay.
There's 200 students across the course, divided into 6 to 8 groups.
Okay.
Each of which is with one instructor the entire time.
Oh, how big is the
Two levels of master's algebra. They call something else, but you could call them regular and honors. So in the honors one, which is the one I've taught mostly, we use that many.
So who's going to be who?
I kind of vote Wesley for the devil's advocate.
Yes.
Okay.
Seems to be a natural.
That sounds appropriate.
I saw Devil and I was like, oh no.
No?
But I tell them it's okay to make mistakes and just come up and explain what you're doing, what's your thought process. You know, how would you tackle this problem? You know. Those are my issues. There's a lot of reservations. They're pretty quiet. You know, when it comes to mathematics, they've always been spoon-fed. So just you tell me. I'll take notes. You know. But in my course, I tell them, you know, based on what we discussed in class and the problems that we've done, why don't you tell us, the students, peers, what's going on? And some of them have embraced it, but some of them are very reticent about this experience. You know, it's very mixed.
Interpersonal interaction like that.
No, what we've got is learning modules that cover 3 semesters with material, and all the learning modules have a certain amount of video, they have a certain amount of text and figures and stuff like that, and they have embedded questions which count for a grade and basically they're really softball questions. This is how we make sure you actually watch, look at the stuff.
Right.
And there's a lot of redundancy. If you don't like videos, you can pretty much pick up everything by reading what's there, and if you don't like reading, you can pick up everything from the videos. And
So whichever style, tactile or visual.
right, but the learning module really does contain everything. Let me write down the website.
Okay. Those are available?
Yes. Well, sort of.
Somewhat.
Sort of. What the way it's set up is based on a homework server.
Okay.
And the questions can only be gotten through the homework server because that's how they're graded. They're randomized for each individual. And,
Right.
I think that this work, the Educational Advancement Foundation, is some of the most important work that's going on. I'm especially interested in meeting people, attending the meetings such as yourselves. I've been working with Mr. Lucas. I've known him for about 50 years. We're friends. I worked with him to help get certain of these programs started. I must say that I think that the conventional way of so-called teaching mathematics has many imperfections, and I think that a discovery approach, such as more developed, has enormous power by comparison. And one of my special interests is in the secondary education. I have been a research institute director, and I've had very advanced PhD mathematicians that were working in that area. For example, one who had his PhD under Mary Ellen Gruden was a fellow at the Institute at Ohio University, and he was accepted into the Harvard MIT PhD MD program. At that level. Nevertheless, I feel it's the most important place for the most capable instructors in mathematics.
That's all I know. So, in fact, I didn't know it was called More Method. I just thought it was good teaching, and anything else was bad. I still think that, but I've gotten a little more politically correct. Anyway, I have not taught the past year. I got beat down by the No Teacher Left Alone Act, and I couldn't take it anymore. From the administration telling me to cheat. So I'm on a break, and I've had great success with More Method, and my kids always got the highest state scores, and I love mentoring other teachers, and that's who I am.
So your school, your ideal activities, you're using worksheet packets that are pre-designed and distributed for everyone teaching the same class?
Yeah.
I'll write that down. That's something you can write down. I never heard something from Molly to read.
We don't use video lectures. Okay. That's something I'm doing this summer. I haven't had time to develop enough to not just be going crazy. So this summer I actually got permission to hire 4 undergraduates who've done a real good job as their learning coaches for me. So I know they can explain it, and I know they know how I teach. And so they're actually making short video lectures that I won't necessarily use all the time, but I want them available as like a resource, so that some of the time I can assign video lectures and free up class time. What I found in trying to do that is that the non-traditional students love them and use them heavily.
An innovator. I like that. I like that phrase. There's an innovator. Mike, can I nominate you as innovator?
Surely. Oh yes.
All right. And are there other roles that people would like to take on here?
Be a wild card.
We've got other wild cards. Okay. All right.
So to my own credit, I volunteered to be the recorder so that I could jump in here better, because I was like, oh no, it's a full table. And so the actual gender role would be for me to be like, I'll just go sit in the corner by myself. I don't do that.
I appreciate that. I've just been in way too many committee meetings where people sit around and say, we need somebody to take notes, and then everybody waits, and finally a woman says, I will take notes, and that should not be acceptable in this day and age. All right, so we had a bunch of people who were early in this process, like just starting to teach, and we have a bunch of people who have taught this. So do we want to start there? Like some tips on...
I have a tip for his first day, even though I'm probably on the former of that category, but I have a tip for first day that I did and it worked well and I liked it, so I could recommend it. I had my students play set on the first day of class. I had my students play set on the first day of class. It's a card game. Yeah, you don't know what it is? Oh, crazy. It's a little math game. It's like you've got these cards and they have 4 different characteristics. It's like color, shape, number, and shading on the cards. And your object is to make sets of 3 cards where each of those 4 characteristics are either shared among the cards or all different among the cards. So you might have 1 red squiggle, 2 red squiggle, 3 red squiggles, but like 1 is open, 1 is solid, 1 is shaded. That would be a set. So it's a logic game, basically. So I introduced the rules. I had the students play for a little while.
Where students then could enter, depending upon their background, because one of the things that we all know is that we're getting more and more students who come in with AP Stat, and even AP Stat credit, depending upon what the college does. So how do you deal with those? We've got no place for them to really go right now. And one of the things we find out with those is they walk into all of them after stat course, well, I don't have to do anything, I've already done this. And they don't do well. And because they're not working at it. So that's one of our possible attempts to try to take this lower level, and instead of being 1 semester, it becomes 1.5, and we're even talking about 4 components, the fourth one being more in the inferential, more of the testing techniques. Yes, and well, I think you build a technology in right at the beginning, because that's one of the things that this generation of students gets attracted to. They won't do everything they can on the machines, but you got to find the right way to build that in. So there.
And that was also a challenge, I would say. My first semester teaching, one of the math ed people comes up to me, literally. She goes, "What's the definition of a trapezoid?"
That was one of the.
That's one of the ones, yeah. Because there's 2 definitions depending on, and I said, I don't know, let's go look it up. And we looked up, and it was not the one she thought it should be, and I said, what difference does it make? The goal of the mathematicians is you have a definition, either you create it or you have one, and you use that definition. You can explore the fact that that's not the only possible definition. That's a question that can be raised when they're doing inquiry. What if you went out and looked and found this for a definition? What would it change? And I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, I think that at the college level is what they should be doing. So is exploring those definitions and why.
Right, so coming up with the algorithm, they're really coming up with the formula, right? Or at least the principle behind the formula. So, and they're sitting there coding in pairs at the computer, and so they're getting their feet wet with the coding, but they're also thinking mathematically about what should I write in the body of this Python function that makes it all work. And then we can easily, since it's on a computer screen, you just grab it and throw it up on the screen and say, okay, let's display your work. And how do you know this is always right?
So you teach it in a classroom or a computer lab?
I've really struggled to get 1 day of the week of the class to meet in a computer lab. Anymore, these are computer science majors, and so they have their own equipment. So I just say, bring your laptops to class. So it's just a lot easier to do it. That's a particular. Not all students have devices at my school, but all the computer science majors do. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is just like a different strategy, right? So instead of thinking about just this example and why, how you could prove that you can't do it, you can think of an example where you can do it and see what qualities are pertinent to that. So we've got a couple.
So then you want to find out why can you do that?
2 or 3
Yeah,
exits.
why can you do that, or are there different ways that you can do that? Are there places
There's
that
2 or 3 exits and 2 or 2 exits. So those have 2 evens and 2 odds. I feel like the evens and the odds have some factor.
Well, this one all has odds.
Exactly.
This one worked out.
So that's why I feel like it's not possible. because these have some evens, but those all have odds. But I feel like you would have to prove a few more.
Yeah, you could draw some other ones. You could say, let's draw a graph where there's, let's see, all evens or something.
Caroline, you're just writing. Any thoughts or questions?
Not right now. I really like what you're doing with the definitions. I think that's really cool. I always enjoy having different definitions, and then whenever they contradict, I mean, that's a blast.
That's the exciting part.
Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like, you're telling me 1 + 1 = 3 and 2?
Yeah.
What? Math should be inspiring people to work through problems like
Well,
this.
I think it should be inspiring them to question why you have this.
About half of our time has elapsed. I just want to remind, I had to cajole some of you into using the roles. I just want to point out that the manager's job is to help everybody use this time efficiently to accomplish like your biggest needs. The harmonizer's job is to make sure that that nobody's dominating, and the recorder's job is to help share this material. We're going to take these giant Post-its, put them out in the hall for people to look at later, and I'm going to tweet them so that everyone can see all of them. So please do that. You have another half hour.
Aside from that, our department, which you guys are obviously welcome to use, we've created video tutorials for Excel and R and all of the basic concepts, and it's free, available on the web. They can go ahead and go look at it. But all the videos are there, all PDF instructions are there too. So anyone at any university has access to it.
But my question is, why do we want to watch a separate video, but can't they just learn Excel as they're doing problems? I mean, somehow design
Some of them are scared, and I think that's they know these kids are hooked into their mobile device, but I'm telling you, I had students that they were just freaked out that they had to use something other than their iPhone.
And some of it is the same language problem, because the syntax of the commands that you have to use in Excel, you have to have the right things there. And some of that bothers them in the same kind of way that the Sigma symbol does.
How does the more method come into this?
You have some definitions, and then you say, for instance, show that this is equivalent to the standard definition of a line.
Oh, okay. So you give them that problem. And then make them figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, and you can do things like, I think there are some definitions you can ask them to produce that should be useful. For instance, a circle. My experience of that is that if you ask for a definition of a circle, you get a definition, and usually the best they will do is also it'll work for a sphere, because there's always something missing. The plane is the most likely thing that they don't even think about. So they think all the points that are the same distance from a point make a circle, but not necessarily. And I think that's an argument that you can get into with them, to think about something that is compact and that it is thorough.
Well, because you're constantly adjusting the schedule.
I think that was part of the problem with the videos too, is without telling them a specific, hey, you need to go watch this video, they were less likely to take the time, right? To, even though all they had to do was Google 5 words and watch something, I think that I would want to come up with a prescribed list of videos next time.
I think, it's a tough nut.
But even I didn't even know this many people were doing the IBL calculus stuff, so having common, like knowing who to contact.
Now, for me, the questions are like when I do visualization, I really wish someone would tell me what are good principles and not, because in this course it gets really hard. So
What do you mean?
some of my shtick, well,
docs that I'm
so
gonna
you're
create.
trying
You want
to
to put your email address down, and I will just access Google, and I'll just attach you all to it.
What's the point of school? That's Claxton's book, Guy Claxton. The teaching gap is good because it's a cultural study between the U.S., Japan, and Germany. And then the U.S. does not look good in these studies, and it points to how we teach. And I can email you like these materials and what I use. And then instead of content like let's look at abstract algebra from an advanced perspective for high school teachers, what I've done is I've decided to hit
things like the problem posing through the layer cake model, so that they learn how to ask better questions. And then related to that, like math models and diagrams. Most students don't use a diagram when they're doing math and draw a picture. And so they'll make mistakes on things like proportional reasoning problems that are not, some problems are proportional reasoning and some aren't.
I'm getting a degree in telling a computer how to solve these problems, right? Like they take Matlab as freshmen. So I decided I'm just going to embrace that. And I started giving my IBL is Matlab assignments. The very first day I gave them a Matlab assignment, which was set up Matlab and print out some stuff to show me that it's working. Of course, okay, so there's a downside to this. In forcing them to do Matlab assignments, I am now the tech support guy. So, caveat.
I have an engineering degree.
Like they will do their best, but they don't really know how to do their best, I think.
Right.
They will show up for office hours, they will say, they will ask questions, they will do the homework, but they just will not know what's going on.
Doing for the sake of doing.
Right. And it's probably, it's never something that they need, and you're probably right that what prerequisites they took were decades ago, and they don't remember any of it, and they say they were never good at it in the first place, so it's...
So lack of confidence, sometimes lack of preparation.
Okay. One of the things I've done in my course, though, it's I do logic and intro to proof, and I work under the assumption, and it seemed to be correct thus far. These students haven't seen this stuff before. The playing field is level, so I wonder if the right kind of topics, some of those issues go away.
Okay, so possibly topics are picking the correct topics and crafting the course a little bit.
Potentially. Simultaneously, I'm concerned though that I've picked something that's too hard. I wonder if the content is scaring them away, or
in a way, I used the word organizer for the base. I used the word counters for the objects they put in their set that they counted, and then every day they could choose an organizer, and the only one they couldn't choose was this one.
Wow.
And then so by the time you've done that for 3 weeks, they have repeated the first principles of what it means to be a place-based operation system, the cans to support it. But my original point in terms of putting them in the position of what the children they teach will do was when they perform the algorithms, because they know how to do that. So they know what the answer is. Now I want a count that supports that. And it's never the algorithm. That's not the way they make the counts. So then the follow-up task, now can we find a count that says why the algorithm works? And since you're not in base 10, it can't be manipulated.
Does that make sense? So I think that's why the book is more cookbooky in a sense that there's just a whole lot of content that can fall under the umbrella and you can pick and choose.
I think it's us to put our personal spin on it. In a sense.
I know.
I think it's that way for historical reasons.
Okay.
I don't think it's deliberate. I don't think people sat down to write a linear algebra book and said, let's not do this. I think what's happened over time is people who teach discrete or people who teach abstract or real analysis, a lot of the authors have recognized the bigger skills that are happening. Oh gosh, my real analysis students can't write proofs. I'll write a real analysis book that also helps students with proofs, right? That kind of thing. And it just, for whatever reason, hasn't really, that I know of. Maybe you know some good books you can
I'm in the process of selecting a book for my class, and I haven't been successful at this point. The only one I think that gets close is, I used to use Leon, but Leon had Matlab and we have Mathematica, which is still okay, but I'm thinking, well, why make them buy a book that Steven Friedberg, and I don't know if you're familiar with that book, and Insel, I think. I forgot his first name. But
you're using Lay.
I'm using Lay.
The book I really wanted to use was by Poole, that does vector spaces over Z2, Poole.
But I found it too.
It's very
over Z2.
It does Z2 alongside of R throw, which for computers
not necessarily a recommendation. I'm fine with doing it for graduate students. It's an open question. Do you think you work with undergraduate students now?
All my students in all my conceptual classes sit in everything in tech. In our intercurricular classes, I teach IBL style for seniors. So we spend 2 days getting them up to speed on tech. And the notes I use have an integrated introduction to tech, so there's all the symbols there with the new definitions. And that's what I do. I have a friend, Lindsay Asheville, who wrote a paper about this, and he found that students use tech, they feel more like mathematicians, they feel like their writing is better because they're doing like what Ed said, it's not the first draft.
Editing.
They're doing something, stretching a lot, and then they're going and typing it, and they're finding their own mistakes. And I think it's a really good thing, and I've always, well, since I thought about it the first time, I've always done it. My first attempt was, I had this one student who I knew I had no interest in reading his handwriting, because it was like he was always just has come from, you know, the dentist in his arm, and like, and then when I read it, so I was like, they're going to write tech.
Yeah, I've had those students before too, and you take that paper, you look at it, and you stuff it to the bottom. You know.
I refuse to grade it. I refuse to grade it.
I've considered that before.
If it's not legible, I refuse to grade it.
Well, I tell them that, you know, it's their job to convince me, right? So if I can't actually figure out what it is they're trying to tell me, whether that's because of grammar, handwriting, or notation, then it's not a valid proof because it's about communication.
Okay.
And so I say, look, I read to here, I have no idea what that says. Which is a little rude, but...
It's time to have everybody, like, make sure everybody voiced their concerns, and it was student driven, it just wasn't quite ideal, you know? So I've just kind of been listening and learning about like how you guys actually like format your classes and stuff, and it's kind of interesting to me. But you guys were saying something earlier, like you were saying that a lot of the students come in with those concerns of like, why am I learning this stuff? And I definitely understood that. I mean, not like I'm personally a math person, so I was loving it. You know, I loved reevaluating all these things that I learned when I was little and like, you know, looking at it in a deeper lens. But a lot of my classmates weren't quite as enthusiastic. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I haven't really had too much to say, but I think so far it's been pretty cool to hear you guys have. So, I don't know.
We have 8 more minutes. Please make sure you've recorded your clever ideas, and we'll spend the last 2 minutes or so sharing the best of those ideas.
So I have a set of notes. I start with set theory. I cover 4 theorems or 5 theorems, and then I tell people a bunch of other stuff, and I say, do any of this stuff, and I'll believe you. If it's true, I'll believe you. Draw a picture and see if it's true. Then I go into, I got to do something about functions because people talk about functions all the time in mathematics. And then I do a little bit of analysis, very small, there's 5 or 6 theorems in analysis, because the students are going to go, my students are going to go into analysis afterwards. And one of the objects in the course is so they don't fail analysis. Well, if you never do any analysis, it's unlikely that this is going to help. And then also that people go into algebra afterwards. That's the typical 2 courses people take after the sort of middle level. They take some analysis, they take some algebra. Right? Okay, so I have a little algebra and a little analysis. But the way you do it makes a huge difference, it seems to me.
So by doing it online, it's immediately graded.
But the problem is the person who's writing the exam is not mirroring the wording of the textbook and the homework.
Well, we have at HCC, which is we have a book, we have homework, and then we go online with my Matlab or WebAssign.
Yeah, that's what we use.
Okay, and then those problems on WebAssign you can find over here in your book. So the 2 are the same. So the instructor gives stuff out of the book or gives it in WebAssign, it's going to be the same problems. Occasionally there's a little difference, but not much. And now here's the bad thing about WebAssign or my math. If you can't work it on your own, they'll come in and start telling you the next step, and pretty soon students are convinced, I made 100 of them.
And that's exactly the point, because then they'll quit, right? And so it's using that, and then you get the kids that have never seen it before, and it's this great access point to analyzing where they are, you know, what are their problem-solving strategies. You know, they can't use their mathematical background to solve this problem. They can't rely on, to a large extent, if they rely on memory, they're probably not going to get it. So, so that allows me this opportunity to say, if you are relying on memory to solve this problem, you're not doing what I call mathematics, and what I believe is most interesting,
It's interesting how video has influenced what it means to be a teacher. I feel like now teacher means also being a videographer and a video editor and being a webmaster, because you have to have a web page. You have to have so many skills in order to just facilitate the learning experiences of your students now.
Yeah. Dedicated will have activities for you and for them, and the instructor that is not interested, it says, oh, at this time I just let them work in their own. So you're observing what? How the students are writing down? You don't see, but I always look at the interaction of the students. If the students are on the task and everything, I can tell the instructor is doing it.
I have the right students for it. These are the students that want to take higher mid-level math classes. Yep. So and I spent 4 or 5, or 6 weeks prepping them for that kind of abstract thinking. Some of them struggle, a lot of them like that section of the course. I think they should know how to compute, so we computed like a 3x3 determinant, and told them, your computer can do this better than you need to know how it works.
Almost the exact opposite. I put them into groups of 4 because I have 80 students.
Oh, yeah.
And I realize that always it's the strong students that are presenting. The weak students are always there in the background, hiding behind someone. Right? So it's always the same. I mean, whoever wants to initiate it, the solution or present it, it's always the strong student. So what I do is, after the strong student takes that initiative to present it, I asked the person, do you agree with, just to sort of...
But I had one student who wrote on the student eval that he or she actually found it refreshing that because I didn't actually have the numerical answer, this student was inspired to be like, okay, I'm going to be the first one to get it, and then I'll be the one who has the answer, kind of. So that was kind of cool. But yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting, and it was a very mixed, it was only a class of 22, so it was a fantastic size for doing this kind of a thing, and it was a really mixed bag. I mean, it was...
What was the gender breakdown?
Pretty split, 50-50.
Okay.
Pretty close. And the class was about a third physics majors, mostly male. About a third who were going to be math high school teachers, mostly female.
Right.
And then a third, chemistry, just all kinds of crazy majors were the other third. So it was a very heterogeneous class.
Yeah.
I want them to think about why they forgot so much of the mathematics they once knew. Because I think this is really where you want to push them into the IBL direction. But the reason you don't remember is that you didn't really learn it right. You didn't discover it on your own.
And the 2 students then got along really well and they really helped. And the better student really helped the worse one and really loved working with her and all that. And so I think, the overachievers are expecting. I think a lot of it is like the external pressures. A lot of them probably would be more involved if they weren't have to worry about that. I know getting rid of grades is not practical for most schools. I know that's not going to happen in most places. But it's something to try to take away there.
Actually, I don't.
But right. The flip side of that is when you give them, okay, well then everything's going to be an application. I hate these damn word problems. Why'd you put all these words in my math? But that actually makes it easier to understand because now there's a concrete thing to tie it to, right?
Well, what I love about sort of the calculus context approach is just, let's face it, most of the time when we give applications, they're really hokey. They shouldn't care about them. But when you start with an application and you don't know what you're doing and then you build up the math, then the math makes sense, maybe, on a good day.
Well, the application is a real world problem. It is something that is going to happen. It's something we face every day. We cannot predict what's going to happen at the end of the day, but there is a problem or reason.
Right, but the standard thing in math is you build up sort of the solid foundation, all of this theory, and then the end of the semester you throw in an application, and it's either really rushed or really hokey,
Yeah, the application part is
and
very
it doesn't
weak.
really stick because they've been tested on.
All right, our time is coming to a close. Two of the groups thus far have said they have particularly exciting ideas they'd like to share with the room. So the first one is our new table talking about developmental mathematics. Can one of you guys get to a microphone to tell us your idea?
So one question that came up for us was, what about online? Like, there's a lot of developmental students who take their classes online, so how do we incorporate any kind of active learning strategies online? And the idea that we came up with was based on Brian and Elizabeth's work in Primus. We have an article in Primus about using wikis in IBL classes. So our idea was that the students would create a single wiki for the entire class that they could use as a study guide or a review guide for their next class. And as in the production of the wiki, what they would do is each like unit or chapter or however, or outcome or however you think about the division of the course material, every student would have an assigned job. And those assigned jobs will be broken down by different ways you can contribute. So if I'm a student in this class, for say the first learning outcome, my job might be I have to edit. Then for the second one, I might have to author. For the third, I might have to find links within the wiki. For the fourth, I might have to find external links. And for the fifth, I might have to make a little video or find a video online that's a resource that I can link to. And the idea being every student contributes something to every single big component of the wiki. And I think the most interesting aspect of this are the links, because what that does is that helps students build the concept maps by building the links within the wikis so that they see how the different ideas, the mathematical ideas, relate.
Awesome, thank you for sharing. We also had a group from Abstract Algebra say they had something they wanted to share. And remember, I'm going to collect these giant Post-it notes that you wrote on. I'll put them out on the windows for everyone to peruse, and I will also take pictures and tweet them to the RLM15 hashtag, so you'll have access to everybody's ideas from the entire roundtable. Ron, are you ready? Great.
Sure. Ours wasn't, I don't think, as good as that. So maybe I should just sit down. Way to ruin it for me, Victor. Thanks. So we were abstract algebra, and we thought that a lot of students seemed to not like abstract algebra and we even had a student who hated abstract algebra as our devil's advocate or whatever it's called. And we decided that that's because they see abstract algebra as a bunch of tricks, but not a coherent theme. And so the idea was to find some kind of a story and hang the course on the story, which seems like a good idea for any course, I guess. You make some sort of coherent theme running through the semester or parts of a semester, and not just, here's a bunch of neat little things that are neat. I'm not as good as Victor, but I can do this too.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so please make sure that all the clever ideas are on your Post-its or get there sometime soon. When you're done with them, could you please put them in the table on your front right corner, so that if you need a little more time to finish them, you can take a little bit more time. And I think lunch is starting real soon. Is there anybody in the room who knows exactly what's happening? Yes? It's an IVL version of lunch. Go explore. Thank you, everyone.